Hey y'all, what's good? I am late and I apologize. I was supposed to start this live at 8:30. Um and it is a little after 9. That is very uncharacteristic of me. But I have been working, okay, and I am beat down. So I came home to take a nap and I'm up now. And so here we are. Um so Yeah. What are we doing? We are going to, excuse me, my allergies are going to, we are going to go over a couple of videos. I will be condensing this live for you guys to watch at a later date. Hopefully, I can get it all up tonight so we can move along with this Brice Rhodes trial. If you have been keeping up, you know that Brice Rhodes has been found guilty on all charges. In the state of Kentucky, the jury is responsible for determining what sentence will be proper for Brice Woods and his crimes. And so we have now entered the penalty phase. Um, and so it's a little bit different from other trials where, you have the state that presents the evidence, the defense that will rebut and ask for dismissal, and then the jury will deliberate and hand down their recommendation as far as guilt or innocence, and then the judge will then go back and decide what the proper penalty will be. In this case, the jury will be the ones to decide what the proper penalty will be. So the death penalty has been taken off of the table due to testing that was conducted on Brice Rhodes, and it concluded that he has a severe mental defect, and we are not aware of what the specific mental defect is. He has also been found to have an intellectual disability, and so with that, he is not eligible for the death penalty. So my presumption is that he will um, possibly be given LWOP, which is life without parole. So we will see. So currently, we are hearing from different witnesses who will testify on behalf of the victims and basically give victim impact statements and what their specific recommendations are for Brice. We will also hear from his family, friends, and loved ones who will also give statements in favor of Brice, and what their specific recommendations are. The defense did not call any witnesses, which um, is not, strange. However, I do appreciate the fact that they did not call any witnesses for their case because it will speed up the trial. Also, I think that calling witnesses or character witnesses on behalf of Brice Rhodes would really be, I don't want to say it'll hurt his case because he's guilty either way, but I think that it will kind of be a slap in the face for Maurice, Larry, and Mr. Jones's family. So that's just my opinion of it. So yeah, so we're gonna jump into the first video. The first video that I want to play and review will be the opening statement. And again, I will condense this video into smaller parts so that you can watch it at your leisure, or if you want to watch the entire live, you can. But the first video that I want to play is the opening statements that took place 6 days ago, and then I'll give my specific commentary related to that. Hey, Maya girl, how you doing? I hope you had a good day. I am still really tired. I took a little nap, so I'm late, but I'm here. So let's jump to that. Give me 1 second.
Way and Maurice Gordon. The evidence is going to show that these acts occurred basically as two acts. And so if this were a play, these would be the characters that are involved in the first act. We have Maurice Gordon and Larry Ordway. Despite having different last names, these two are brothers that live together. They went to school at Olmsted. They liked playing basketball. They enjoyed rapping. They were always hanging out together. They had a home. They had a family. But from time to time, they would be out of the house for a few days. That wouldn't be anything unusual for them. They were born 2 years apart and a day, so they almost had the same birthday. And unfortunately, they both died on the same day, which we'll get to a little bit later. So these two brothers that were always hanging out together, 16 years old and 14-year-old, were friends with several people, one of which was Ja'Cory Taylor. Now, Ja'Cory, you're going to hear testimony from him. He's going to testify. He had a rough go of it. He had lost his job at White Castles. He was in and out of people's houses. He would stay in the stairwell at his girlfriend's house. He was just kind of on the boundary of things. And he was friends with both Larry and Maurice. And Ja'Cory goes by Corey also sometimes. And Maurice Gordon also goes by Maurice. And they were mutual friends with Brice Rhodes, the defendant here, who went by Rambo. Brice Rhodes, was 25 years old at the time in 2016 when he's hanging out with 14-year-olds and 16-year-olds. Ja'Cory was 17 years old. And there's one more person in this friend group. Antoine Carter, right here. And he goes by Buddha. And he was just a friend of theirs that would hang out. So as they were hanging out, an idea came about. This is a picture of Larry and Maurice, Mr. Rhodes, the defendant. It's a picture of Antoine and a picture of Ja'Cory. Now I'm going to leave this up here just as a reference for you all, so when the names start going, you can look back. So one night with Brice Rhodes, we came upon an idea. And the idea was basically it was to hit out on somebody. And they were going to kill that person and collect on the hit. And Brice Rhodes was aware of this hit and knew who would pay on it and knew who the target was. So on May the 4th, 2016, now keep in mind, all the events from this case happened in May of 2016. So when you see witnesses on the witness stand, they don't look at all the same as they looked back then. And also people's memories are a little bit different because this happened a while ago. So the idea was this. They all hopped in a car on May the 4th, and Maurice was driving the car. It was a blue Mazda that was owned by the defendant, Mr. Rhodes. The front passenger seat was Larry. Brice Rhodes was in the back behind the driver's seat. And Corey Taylor was on the right behind the passenger seat. Trailing in a different vehicle was Antoine Carter. He's in a truck that's following behind his car. So it's nighttime, and they're driving around looking for this guy, looking to collect the price on his head. As they approach, picture of Antoine, who was the follow driver, who was 17 at the time. As they approach 41st Street, there's video of the car driving by, then video of the truck. What happened was a man was walking out in the streets, and he had long braids. So he looked like the guy that Brice Rhodes believed the hit was on. So Brice Rhodes rolled down his window. The guy was walking out of the street. Cars parked in the road. He's walking out into this, away from the street, in between the cars. Brice Rhodes yells out the window to him, "Hey, get out the road, bitch," and then shoots him one time in the side. The bullet wound is going to go through his arm and into his side. Police are going to be alerted that there was a shooting and respond to the scene. The man on the pavement there is Christopher Jones. He had nothing to do with any hit or street business. He was just in the wrong place in the wrong time and ended up being shot. He was still alive, but non-responsive there at the scene. EMS took him to the hospital where he passed away. This is the intersection of the nearest street the police reported to. There's another picture of Mr. Jones. And this is a picture from the body cam of approximately where his body was in the road as the car drove by. You can see this is the clothes he was wearing, and some of the items that were on his person. And that's what he was reduced to after he was shot by Mr. Rhodes. You can see a single bullet wound in his arm, and then the entrance of the bullet wound that turned out to be fatal into his chest. So that's the end of what, if this were a play, if this wasn't so serious, we'd call the first act. Now, a couple different ways it happened, but essentially, Brice Rhodes became aware by overhearing a phone conversation with Jacory talking to Maurice that they were talking about the murder that had happened, that their family knew about it. And as soon as Mr. Rhodes knew that the boys were talking, even just to their family, he knew that they had to do something about these boys to keep them from talking, to cover up this first murder. So this is a black Dodge Charger that Mr. Rhodes had access to and often drove. And you're going to hear testimony that on the 22nd of May, just a couple of weeks later, this black Charger picked the boys, Larry and Maurice, up at their house. And that was the last time that anybody from that apartment was going to see them alive again. So Maurice and Larry are obviously going to be the victims in this second act. And it's going to be carried out by a defendant named Tyrion Coleman, by Antoine Carter, who was involved earlier, and by Corey Taylor, and by Mr. Rhodes himself. So I'm going to leave that up there for your reference. So this is Brice Rhodes' apartment that he lived at with his mom. He had the boys over there. It was four of them, well, the six of them, four individuals listed there, Maurice, Larry, and another individual. And as the night got on, boys started wrestling around, and there was a little bit of a skirmish that broke out with Maurice. And so Brice Rhodes said it was time to discipline Maurice. Maurice had pulled out a knife on somebody, and so Brice hit him upside the head pretty hard and took the knife. He then said, "It's time for you to be disciplined." So he went up to Maurice, put a toboggan on his head, pulled it down over his eyes so he couldn't see. And he tied his arms behind his back so that he couldn't move. And he made him beg for forgiveness and plead for his life, which he did. He was begging everyone in that room to spare him and apologizing and saying he was sorry. So Larry, his brother, was taken and held in a different room. And from Larry's room, he could hear his brother pleading for his life, and he could hear what happened to his brother. And what happened to his brother is that he was punched a few times by Mr. Taylor. And then Brice Rhodes took a knife and began stabbing him over and over and over again. In the chest, in the midsection, and in the genitals. He was screaming and crying out for help, and his brother was helpless a room away to do anything about it. When they were finally done, they rolled Maurice over, and then they brought Larry into the room. And then they repeated the process. They took the toboggan off, they put it on Larry's head, they put something over Larry, and they started stabbing him until he died there in that apartment. Brice's mom and sister, who shared that apartment with him, were out of town that weekend. So he had the place to himself. He had the people involved help him take the body of the boys and put them in some totes, which he then carried down and put in the back of his Mazda. Some in the back seat and one of them in the back seat and one of them in the trunk. And then he drove off. Now he left Antoine and Jacory at the house to clean up because there was blood all over the carpet. He gave them cleaning supplies and he gave them towel. And just for good measure, because his mom was out of town, he had them also do his dishes while they were scrubbing up the blood. He and other individuals went and dropped the body of the boys off, dropped their bodies off. He also set fire to the items that were associated with the stabbing and left it in a dumpster. Dropped the bodies off around 4028 River Park Drive, which you can see from the area is near the park, near Wanda Park where they play ball. So on the 22nd day of May, this is what somebody in the neighborhood discovered. 2 boys mutilated, stabbed, set on fire, and left like trash. So boys' parents are starting to wonder where they're at when they don't come home after the first day. And so mom gives them a call. Well, the person that answers the phone isn't Maurice. It's Antoine Carter. And he tells her, kids are fine. They're doing something else. I just borrowed the phone. So police discover the 2 bodies. And eventually they have sketch artists come out. They can't get fingerprints because the bodies are too badly burned. They have sketch artists come out and draw a picture of how the boys looked, and they're looking for, checking news stories for missing boys. Eventually, they find that there's 2 boys that are missing from Olmsted School, and they have the boy's mother come out, and she identifies that, yes, that's them. From there, police realize a couple things. They know who the boys left with that night. They know that it was Mr. Rhodes. They also know that they left with Antoine Carter and Jacory Taylor. So police track the phone, and eventually it leads them to Antoine Carter. And Antoine Carter eventually ends up talking to police and explaining what happened after some little bit of give and take. He finally got to the story of what happened. About this same time, police pick up Brice Rhodes, and he gives a short statement, which you will hear. Police go out to Brice Rhodes' house once they've heard what happened, and they start pulling up the carpet from his house. And when they do a DNA analysis on that carpet, of course, they find the blood of the 2 brothers is there on the carpet. Police also learn that after this event, after that night, when Brice Rhodes comes back from dropping the bodies off, he picks up the 2 boys that were left to clean up the house. Jacory had with him the boots that he wore in the house. And he left those boots at a girlfriend's house. And so police got a search warrant. They go to that girlfriend's house, and those boots, the DNA on those boots, comes back to the boys as well, corroborating what was said earlier. He also gives a statement to police, and it pretty much matches the statement of Antoine Carter that I've just relayed to you. So here's a picture of the apartment, how cleanly the flooring was stripped from Brice Rhodes' place. Another thing that police did once the investigation got underway was they went and looked at Brice Rhodes' blue Mazda that had transported um, the two victims in the tote sacks. And you'll notice this is a picture of the back seat of the Mazda. All the cloth seating has been ripped out of it. And then this is a picture of Jacory at the police station giving his statement. You can see, I want you to remember how young he truly is. At this point in time, he is 5'5", weighs 122 pounds. Brice Rhodes is a 25-year-old grown man. There's a picture of the boots that were recovered from the girlfriend's house. You're going to hear from a lot of different people that are going to come through here. The police that were involved with both of these investigations that had to piece together that the two investigations were connected and take over. So there's going to be two different lead officers. You're going to hear from experts in, you're going to hear from the medical examiner. You're going to hear from CSU professionals. You're going to hear everything that the police did to make sure that the three victims in this case get justice. And I hope at the conclusion of the Commonwealth's case, you will give them that justice. Thank you.
Okay, I'm back. So I'm just gonna say a couple of things. Let me speak to who came in here while this was going. Hey Tim and hey TY. Hey Blacklight Lifestyle. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. I'm live, but this footage is not. It's the opening statement took place 6 days ago, so I'm just trying to play catch up. The case went so fast, I thought I would have more time to actually um hold on. The case went so fast, I thought I would have time to do everything that I needed to do with these videos. But hey, but Blacklight, I do agree with you. I do believe he did it. I think he was the mastermind behind it. However, I don't believe the state provided enough evidence. I don't. Um, just because there is a copious amount of blood under a carpet does not mean that one particular person did it. That's not proving to me that one particular person did it. Tearing out the backseat of a car does not prove to me that one person did it. There just wasn't enough evidence for me. Um, so yeah, I'll leave that with that. I'm not gonna go too deep into that. And yes, it was very fast. Hey Kim. Let me see what questions y'all have. I have a question for you, but it doesn't involve the case. Hey Kim, hey, go ahead and ask the question. The defense didn't even. You want to know why I think they did that? I've seen that before. I think that their defense was that they didn't have the evidence, that the state didn't have the evidence, but there's no defense after that, right? So you can say, all right, well, you're saying that my client did it, but the evidence doesn't point directly to him because there were other individuals who were involved. And so now it just becomes, a case of this person is blaming that person, so on and so forth. And so what do you stand up and say after that? You know, it's almost like you're wasting the court's time doing that because you don't have any evidence to back that up. And the defense doesn't have to provide evidence, but still, that defense strategy to me is not strong enough. And so I guess just in an effort to just move things along and get things done, just rest, you know? Also in Kentucky, I'm sure you all are well aware, the jury will decide the punishment. And so this is the defense's opportunity to call up any type of character witnesses on behalf of Bryce, uh, to maybe steer them another way, although I do not feel that they would be successful. A lot of that due to his pretrial antics. He has a history of violence prior to being arrested and while being incarcerated. So that's not a good look. He is accused of spitting on people, physically abusing people, um, just his whole attitude all around. Um, yeah, that's not going to be a good look for him. So I'm not sure. The defense definitely surprised us with that. But I do have a question for y'all. So Maurice and Larry, excuse me, um, after Bryce unalived Mr. Jones, Maurice and Larry did go back um and tell their mom what happened. I am wondering why their mother did not get in contact with law enforcement at that time, right? If her sons are telling her, "Mom, we were hanging out with Bryce and he took us on a joyride and we ended up over here. We saw him pull out a GUN and we saw him unalive someone. And then we went back to his house and now we're home." Why didn't they get in contact with law enforcement? Furthermore, why did the family allow Maurice and Larry to hang out with Bryce knowing that this incident occurred? They should not have been allowed to hang out with him regardless. But after the fact that they reported this, why were they allowed to hang out with him? And how long had the boys been missing before the mom decided to call the police? I need to look up what the requirements are to call in a missing persons report. Did anybody else wonder that? So he's not delaying anything. I think that's a misconception. He, for whatever reason, his public defenders withdrew the first time, and so he is allowed to have new public defenders. So the way that it works is that a public defender is assigned based on their number one, their availability. Number two, only if they don't have a conflict of interest with the client and the case. Number three, based on their experience. And so, per Milwaukee, they are behind 350 cases and they're having a hard time assigning public defenders for these cases. Also, it also depends on the type of cases that are in limbo. So if there are unaliving cases that are waiting to be tried, things that are like class A felonies, those will be tried first and then you move down the list. So seeing as though his is what is it, domestic violence and witness intimidation, it's not as high on the list as some of the others. And so he has to wait until there's a public defender available. Now, he was most recently assigned a public defender, and that public defender asked for a continuance because now they have to start from scratch with his case. They have to go through all of the discovery and they have to decide what his specific defense is going to be. So it's not Darrell holding it up, it's the city of Milwaukee. Um, as far as, like I said, assigning him a public defender, and that public defender is allowed to ask for a continuance based off of the information that they have made available to them and the time that it's going to take for them to review all of the components of the case. Now, this is holiday season, and so I'm left to assume that that attorney is not going to do any work probably until the beginning of next year. I believe his next status hearing is January 18th. And so at that time, they'll have another status hearing and we will see if they are ready for trial. The prosecution is ready, but we're waiting on the defense. So it's not Darrell in this case. He can demand to be at every hearing. It's his right or whatever, to be present and to be heard if they need to hear anything from him. So that's not against the law. Um, lose rights at what sentencing? At the Waukesha? So whatever rights he lost at that trial doesn't pertain to anything that's going to take place in Milwaukee. So I hope that answers your question. Let me know if you have any more. It's just ignorant, right? I'm not expecting him to respect anybody. Why would he? That guy is trash. That guy is trash. But thankfully he's off the streets. We don't have to worry about him anymore. But it was concerning to me, those questions that I asked. So if anybody wants to chime in with their thoughts about that, please do. I just I don't know. But we're gonna move on. We're gonna hear from the crime scene technician now. Um and see what specific evidence they have and see if it points to Brice Rhodes or is it just evidence related to the trial and it's just I guess fair game I can say. So let's see what she has to say.
Could you introduce yourself to the jury, please?
Hi, my name is Rebecca Kimmer, Kimmer, and I am a crime scene technician with Louisville Metro Police Department, where I have worked for approximately 10 years.
What do you do with the crime scene?
Okay. I guess the court reporter is right into the mic so you hear tapping. It's not me. I don't know if the volume is okay. I am taking notes. So after this is about I'll stop like midway. It's a 49-minute video. I'll stop midway to recap or something like that. Just in case the audio may be off on your end. Everything is amplified on my end and I do have my mic on mute and I do have the closed captioning uh on. So I apologize if the audio isn't the best.
assist the detectives and officers on crime scenes that they may have. So we document, we go out, we photograph, do video, collect and obtain DNA or evidence from the scene. At that point, we bring it back to the office and do our further testing we then package and transport to the property room.
And on May 24th of 2016, did you respond to 763 Hyde Avenue, Unit 2?
Yes.
What were you
On that evening, myself and technician Stevenson responded. We were responding to do a search warrant for Blue Star, which is a chemical that we are able to spray on. It enables us to see blood that's not visible with the naked eye. So it will fluoresce in a bright blue color with the presence of blood.
And did you do that at this location?
We did do that.
Where did you spray this?
We sprayed throughout the entire condo. We focused on the living room and then a bathroom.
And were you didn't know anything independently about this case, right?
I did not.
Okay, so just whatever the detectives told you to do.
That's right.
And you don't know where they were getting their information.
I do not.
Okay. So when you sprayed it, what happens? Like
So typically, once we spray, if the presence of blood is there, it will fluoresce in a bright blue color.
And do you have to have the lights off to see that? Or?
We have to keep the lights off, and our cameras go on different settings in order to capture that luminescence.
Back then,
they were not, unfortunately.
So did you attempt to take pictures?
We did attempt to get photos. Unfortunately, the camera was not cooperating. At that point, we decided to try to capture the presence and the positive reaction on video, and that was not successful either.
So what do you do next if you can't memorialize that?
So once we determined that that was not successful, we moved on, and at that point, we just decided to take up the entire rug and carpet along with the carpet padding throughout.
get a carpet up?
We worked well together pulling it up that night. We just cut and pulled it up, basically.
And was that carpet then collected?
That carpet was collected and I transported that back to the crime scene unit. At that time, it was 633 West Jefferson.
So how many pieces, or like, did you have to cut it up? Did you roll it up?
So once we took the entire carpet, we took it back to the office, laid it out, and at that point, in a more controlled environment, I was able to get better photos, and then I did carpet cuttings of areas that were presumptive to be blood. And those were then sent off for testing later on.
So how big was did you pull it out in one piece?
We did,
And so we have the carpet
And then
the
the-
carpet padding.
yes.
So is that two large things?
It was two large things, yes.
And did you have to cut them into smaller pieces?
Once I got back, I did smaller cuttings to send those off to KSP for testing.
And how do you know what pieces to send to KSP?
You do presumptive testing that show up for blood, and then anything that I could see that was visible, I cut those pieces as well.
And we throw around acronyms so much, I sometimes don't notice when I'm doing it. We say KSP, what are we talking about?
Kentucky State Police. I'm sorry.
And they run a crime lab?
They do, yes.
And is it your intention that they do a DNA test?
That's right.
Yes.
Showing you 89 through 90D.
Thank you.
Here, that's those photos.
I do.
Those photos very necessarily represent what the carpet looked like that night.
Yes.
Currently, Commonwealth Ministry use 87 minutes.
No objection.
Thank you. Admitted.
I'm not gonna just go through each picture and you just tell us what we're looking at.
So that's the carpet that we rolled back, and then the padding underneath there. And that's the padding. So that's the padding once we removed the carpet itself.
Is this the living room?
This is the living room, yes.
Would we have a kitchen to our backs?
Yes, and then the little hallway to the left up there is the entrance foyer from the entry exit door.
So y'all just move the furniture to the side?
Mhm. I think that evening, they, in order, once we did everything that we needed to do process-wise, the detectives moved the couch and whatnot out onto the small patio there. Again, that's just more of the padding with the photo or the staining underneath. And in this photo, this is where we started to peel back the padding underneath, and that was just the floor there where it had soaked through. And just documenting the stains. Again, with the documentation of the stains. And just layering, so we just photographed layers as we took each layer off. Again, that's just the base,
Are you all wearing gloves during this?
yes. And just more documentation of the stains and the layering,
And is this the areas where the Blue Star reacted?
yes. And then that's just the padding again once more. Again, with the padding.
And so you said that was, do you have to dry that or?
Yes, so that carpet was saturated. And so at that point, we took it back to the office. We laid down, we have brown paper that we lay down. We laid that down and then laid the carpet on top of that in order to let it dry on its own.
And is that, as far as the carpet goes, was that?
Yes,
other than
Other-
saying,
yes.
The next day, were you called to another location?
So yes, so later that evening, I believe, may I refer to my report?
Are you unable to recall?
I don't recall the
That-
time.
Okay, any problem with that? Go ahead.
I believe it was, so we were called back out at 2:56 in the morning to another search warrant.
So would that have been on the 25th?
Yes,
Obviously, of May 2016.
yes.
Where were you called?
We were called to, 6508 Hackle Drive.
Do you recall where that is?
It's in the 3rd Division. I believe it's off Cane Run Road, if memory serves correctly.
And why were you called to that location?
We were called to that location in an attempt to collect evidence that the homicide detectives had been notified was there in a dumpster.
What manner of location was that?
It was the rear of an apartment building. There were 2 dumpsters back there, and they had knowledge of evidence in those dumpsters.
And so were there detectives already there when you got there?
Yes.
And what was your role at that scene?
So my role was again to photograph, document the scene as is. And at that point, we started going through each dumpster and pulling every item out one by one, photographing and documenting what was in the dumpster.
Was it standard dumpster?
Yes,
Um,
it was a functioning apartment complex, so.
I'm just gonna start with this while he keeps numbering. Right now. he's numbering. All right, I'm handing you what we've marked as 99 through 133. Yes, some of this stuff out of the way. Are those photos you took that night at the
They are.
dumpster and at CSU right afterwards?
Yes.
Apparently, the Commonwealth moves to introduce 99 through 133.
No objection.
Thank you. So, did you say 134?
33.
33, thank you.
Is this the dumpster in question?
Yes.
What are we looking at there?
We're just looking at the beginning of the photos with the top layer of the trash and debris. These are articles of burnt, looks like towels and blankets for that top layer there. Another blanket or partial towel. And then just more of the burnt evidence. Again, with the burnt, that's one of the comforters that was removed.
Did you all start taking stuff out?
Did. So once we initially looked into the dumpster, realized there were things in there, we started to slowly peel back the layers. So we would photograph, take out, photograph again, and then go back for another, what I would say, like a layer. And again, this is just another photo of once we cleared off that top portion.
So there would have been debris covering this layer in the beginning.
That's right. And then this was the pink blanket that was on top there in the previous photo. We just pulled it out and laid it out as best we could. This is a pillow that we located in there, and at the top left corner, there's a blue latex glove that had been burned and melted onto the pillow. Again, this is another towel that was kind of folded, wadded over inside of a latex glove. This was looked like maybe a body pillow of sorts, just a very long pillow that was also in there and burned. We took it off and took it out in the photograph. This is one of the sheets that came out of the dumpster. And this was the bottom of the dumpster. Once we pulled those other items out, this was the bottom. Again, just full of typical debris. It's just another angle. And at this point, we started to go a little bit further down where we located, I believe that to be a pillowcase, maybe. And just a different angle there. And then again, just a different angle. And this is where the detective is just slowly pulling things out so that I can photograph and as he's taking them out. And then this is another that we just laid there on the pavement. Just getting up close on the stains there that we found. Just more photos once we take them out. This is just another of the layering there. Okay, and this is back at the office where we were able to get a better look at it. So once we laid on the paper, we were able to see better and then lay it out in a more organized fashion, if you will. And at that point, we also will look for different defects or anything that we can see with the naked eye. And then again, this is just back at the office where we're laying things out again, getting better photos in a more controlled environment. And that looks to be the same as the previous, looks like a fitted sheet, possibly. I believe this was a pillowcase, if I'm not mistaken. And then just possible staining there that we wanted to document. And this is a pillow that I spoke on earlier. And this was a shoe that we recovered out of the dumpster that we brought back with us. And then this is the cell phone that we recovered. And this is that glove that I spoke on with the rag inside that was turned inside out, knotted in blue latex glove.
So at the time, do you know which of this evidence might have anything to do with this case?
We don't.
So do you have to
I don't.
collect everything?
We do.
Did you all collect absolutely everything from the dumpster, or did you make decisions about?
They made decisions on what they wanted me to collect.
Who made those decisions?
The detectives that were on scene.
Was that Detectives Peter and Metzler?
Yes.
So when you collect these items, this is what the wire from business.
Yes.
Does this case have a lot of boxes of evidence?
Yes. A lot.
Yes.
Okay, so while they're having a sidebar, one thing that I wrote down as a note, excuse me, my allergies acting up. Hold on. Excuse me. Did they didn't mention anything about surveillance or any eyewitnesses, and I don't remember any eyewitnesses being called to the stand. And so that's just an observation that I made. Is it related to evidence pointing directly to Bryce? Um, and I'm not saying he didn't do it or anything like that. I'm just saying those are simple observations that I made. Um, what do y'all think about that? What do y'all think about the evidence that's been presented so far?
I'm gonna show you two items that we marked as one. You could just look at these are examples of evidence from the case.
Yes, so this is Exhibit 67, which is a burnt blanket that was recovered. This is 64C, Exhibit 64C, which is a cutting from Exhibit 64.
Did you bring gloves, scissors?
I brought a knife.
Okay. Your Honor, the Commonwealth moves to introduce 134 and 135.
Any objection subject to this prior discussion? Great, thank you, admitted.
Taking them both all the way out.
If you could just like maybe pull them out. Why are there like bright orange stickers on these items?
So the bright orange stickers indicate that it's a biohazard, whether that be blood, body fluids, it's a biohazard. So that's just indicative for everyone coming in contact with it.
And is that on every piece of evidence that might have bodily fluids on it?
Yes,
Okay, nothing specific to this case.
no, just in general. This is 134, the blanket.
Could you tell the jury what all this tape means?
So once we get back to the office, we will go ahead and package all of our evidence. So we package it, we make a label for it here with the information for each case, case number, name, location, and date. And then we will use the evidence stickers there and the evidence stickers across so that once that seal is broken, it can be signed and then documented down here as to who broke the seal, on what date and time was it broken. And typically there's a location.
And does the blue tape signify something?
This looks like it went to the lab, so they opened it once they did their testing. You want me to take it all the way out?
If you could just show them, I don't know. Yeah, that's good.
So this is part of the pink blanket that was removed from the dumpster off Hackle Drive.
Thank you. Except for having one tape. And I'm just gonna walk up here and say that's super.
Am I good to go?
Yes.
This is 64C. And you can see once PSP got it, once they received it for their testing, they then circled the areas that they tested for DNA. That's just the definition. They label by items. They don't go with our exhibit numbers.
I'm not open anymore, but I just want to.
You do not want me to open anymore?
No.
Okay.
Just are these other items, just if you could look at them and
Mhm.
tell us if these are other items collected.
This is 64B, which is another cutting from the padding and the carpet that was collected that evening. This is 63A and 63B, which are more cuttings from exhibit 63, which is the carpet and the padding. This is 64D, another cutting from exhibit 64. Here we have 63E and 63F, which are two cuttings from exhibit 63.
And if you open these, would they look very similar?
Yes.
That'd be great. Thank you, Detective Snelling.
So from the carpet, the top carpet,
Yes.
did you, when you submitted that to the lab, did you do it in these square pieces?
Yes.
And how, do you have a notation of how many pieces got sent to the lab?
I do not. I wasn't the lead technician, so I was not in charge of sending those items off for testing.
Would the lab have that?
Yes. Yes.
And then, what did you note? Okay, so from the apartment, you all collected carpet padding, and then you may have subdivided that into various pieces.
That's right.
Did you collect anything else from the apartment?
Yes. So along with the carpet cuttings and the padding, we also collected one clear glass vase that had a brown artificial floral arrangement in it that had possible blood, and then we collected a silver mirrored vase with another brown artificial floral arrangement that may have also had possible blood. And those are the only things that I collected from that apartment.
When you went to the dumpster, we saw a lot of pictures, and you said earlier that not every single, like you all wouldn't have collected, I don't even know, something on the bottom of the dumpster that, I won't put words in your mouth. Were there things from the dumpster you didn't collect? That's right. Okay. What was an example of the type of stuff you all were collecting?
We were mainly looking for items that appear to be burned, items that may have had possible blood or staining that could have been consistent with possible blood. We were looking for those type of items. Items that resembled bedding, we were looking for items such as that as well.
And if we could go through and if you could just tell the jury, you don't have to read the whole summary of each item, but just a blanket, no, whatever.
Okay.
Obviously, we have a blanket already.
Okay, so exhibit 67 was a burnt pink blanket, which is the exhibit that I just showed. Exhibit 68 was a burnt brown and green pillow. That's the one with the blue latex gloves that was burned to the top there. Exhibit 69, they were various burnt pieces of a towel. Exhibit 70 was a possible blue plastic tote that was partially melted. It was burned with miscellaneous dumpster items. That included a brown and White Castle bag. And that I did note down here that had a strong odor of gasoline when we collected that. Exhibit 71 was a burnt blue, blue, purple, green, and white twin bed sheet. 72 was a burnt green and white fitted sheet. Exhibit 73 was a burnt, damaged black and silver Samsung cell phone. That was the cell phone that I showed. Exhibit 74 was a burnt, damaged black HTC cell phone. Exhibit 75 were 3 brown carpet cuttings that were located in the bottom of the dumpster. Exhibit 76 was a burnt white towel. Exhibit 77 was 1 partial burnt white sock. Exhibit 78 was 1 burnt green and white bed pillow. Exhibit 79 was 1 blue latex glove with the white fabric or cloth that was rolled into it. Exhibit 80 was 1 burnt black and silver Nike brand athletic shoe. And it was unknown at that time if it was a left or right shoe. Exhibit 81 was 1 burnt Reebok brand athletic shoe. Again, unknown if it was left or right. Exhibit 82 was 1 burnt white towel. Exhibit 83 was 1 burnt white and yellow flat sheet with some type of orange fabric that was attached to it. Exhibit 84 was 1 piece of miscellaneous burnt fabric. Exhibit 85 was 1 burnt Air brand athletic shoe. Again, unknown if it was left or right. Exhibit 86 was a cut piece of white knotted fabric. And Exhibit 87 was 1 white, blue, and red Murphy USA brand lighter.
And were all those items properly packaged and stored at CSU?
Yes, so they were all transported and secured in CSU that evening. At what point I then photographed everything individually. I was able to get a better look at everything, document anything that I thought could possibly be blood or defects, and they were then packaged and transported to the property room for safekeeping.
Is the property room a secure location?
Yes.
And is it from the property room that they're sent to the lab?
Yes.
Does the lab then send them ultimately back to the property room?
Yes.
And
we actually go pick them up. We transport them back and forth.
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna stop right here real quick. So she said it was a variety of sheets, towels, and blankets. Now they were burned, so it was probably impossible to get any type of DNA on those particular items. There was a glass vase and a mirror vase, per her description, that was retrieved from the home. However, I didn't hear anything about DNA evidence or if the brown substance that was found on those vases, if that was actually blood or not, or if it was tested. I haven't heard anything about the unaliving weapon, if it was ever located. If it was located, was it tested for DNA evidence? She also went on to say that there was a burnt shoe, which they probably couldn't tell if it was left or right because it probably was melted. And then there was a burnt glove. And I didn't hear anything about anybody doing any type of DNA testing on that as well. Debbie, you said that the evidence was weak. I absolutely feel that the evidence is weak. Um, Thankfully, we did have the testimony of the 2 boys. If we didn't, I'm not so sure about this. Um, I don't know how long they searched. I don't know if they just took, what was admitted to as far as the unalivings taking place in the house, and so they just pulled up the carpet and just went with that. Um, I have to watch a little bit more of the trial. I have to say I am not caught up, but was there some type of lab tech maybe that testified to DNA evidence, y'all? I'm not impressed with either of them either. To me, it just seems like they just want to get it over with. It's been going on for 7 years at this point, and I think they just wanted to present what they had, and that was that. I don't know. Yeah. Y'all let me know. I'll try to find it so I can listen, but I'm just not. If I was a juror and there wasn't any type of testimony from Anwan or Corey, I wouldn't be swayed. To me, that's not enough to say that he did it whatsoever. So I'm not sure.
cross-exam? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Mr. Griffiths.
We haven't spoken before today.
No.
Okay. I bet you started and I missed how long you've worked for the LMPD.
Approximately 10 years.
Okay.
Mhm.
And has it always been in the CSU unit?
Yes.
Okay. Prior to that, you worked outside, someplace else? Or
I've always been in the crime scene unit.
no. I mean, prior to working for LMPD.
Oh, yes. Prior to that, I worked for Norton Brownsboro Hospital. I was a medical lab technician there.
So you started off talking about, I think, photos and things.
Yes.
You may not know this, but I just got, when I say just got, I mean like 10 minutes before you got on the witness stand, just got this video.
Okay.
Do you know what's on this video?
I don't.
Okay. This, I was told, but I haven't had a chance to watch it, is maybe from the scene of the search warrant on Hyde Avenue.
Yes.
All right. When I watch this, what will I see?
It's probably most likely going to be a dark video. That is the video that we took in an attempt to capture the Blue Star reaction when we couldn't get the Blue Star reaction on our camera. So then we attempted to do video and we were not able to capture it.
So you said dark video. I just want to make sure what you mean, because
It will be dark.
Like,
There should be darkness. The lights were off. It needs to be total darkness in order to capture those results. And so it will be completely blacked out.
okay. And when you say that, you mean, and I won't see any results either.
No, not on this video. We were not able to capture it on that video. Unfortunately.
I assume that you folk, I mean, I know you're in the CSU, you're in the, what's it stand for? I know.
Crime scene unit.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I should know that. Okay. You guys are made of procedures, right? You have procedures on top of procedures.
Yes.
So when you make a video like this, what's the procedure?
In terms of,
What happens to it? I mean, you don't like put it in your pocket and leave with it.
no, at that time in 2016, our videos then became exhibits. So our video then turned into Exhibit 62, which was scene video. We labeled those, they became an exhibit, and they were secured then.
So did you know that this was something that we just got today, this afternoon?
When you told me just now.
Just now?
Yeah.
Okay, I was curious.
No,
So somewhere along the lines from, were you the one actually holding the camera?
yes,
Somewhere along the lines of you holding the camera in this courtroom, something did not go right.
right.
If I'm just getting it now, 7 years later.
Well, not that it didn't go right. We were attempting to capture the results of the Blue Star on video. We were not able to capture it due to the lighting, and the camera has to have a certain amount of filtering settings in order to capture those results. We thought we might be able to get it on video. We were not able to. It was just an attempt made.
That wasn't the part of going right. I meant that you have procedures set up, so if you record something on the video, everybody knows about it. It goes into the case.
Yes, yes.
Right. So you would assume that if you make a video, it doesn't pop up 7 years later in the middle of the trial, right? That's not the way it's supposed to
Well,
work.
it was still considered an exhibit, so it could, because it's at that point, it's Exhibit 62. So it's still evidence.
Right, but like these are in boxes and labels and we all knew about them in the courtroom. This was news.
They knew, typically they were on a small cassette. So someone obviously put that onto that disc. I'm not aware of when it was put onto that disc, but back in 2016, when we would finish a video, we would label the video with our name, the date, the time that we did the video, and the case information, and then we would secure it not in a box, but in an envelope with the same labeling as that labeling there that you see and labeled Exhibit 62.
And you would expect that to go to the officers?
Yes.
The detectives?
Yes,
Okay, so-
yes,
And the.
That we
presumably
would
the
have, yes.
prosecution and defense and everybody.
yes, anyone that needed access to that, yes,
Just like all these other.
that's right, yes.
So you would agree with me that something went sideways if the first time we're all getting it is today? I'm not crouching at you.
No, yes, yes, that's a fair assumption.
You're saying that when I look at this sometime later on today or tonight, that it will be a completely
Total darkness,
black
Yes.
video with nothing on it.
that's right.
I think you said you took photos that also were basically black,
Yes, we were not able to capture it, unfortunately, yes.
which is why we haven't seen those up on the screen, and we have, right?
Yes, probably so, yes.
Okay, you didn't.
It's just darkness.
And this probably is a dumb question, but I'm gonna ask anyway. There isn't a second video, like you didn't have one, when you went in, for example, you didn't have one walking on the
Oh, no.
door, when you're doing everything else. No other-
No.
At scenes, the CSU does make videos and did make videos back then, right?
Yes,
So at the time that you were there executing, and I know you aren't the one executing the warrant, but you're part of the team.
yes.
That was not considered a scene worthy of videotaping?
So typically, the videos are done on the initial scene itself. So the very first response location where the actual crime took place or where they were called initially, those videos are done immediately. So on a homicide scene that we get called out, we will start with scene video and then we will do our photos. On a search warrant such as this, we typically do not do a video. This video was only done in an attempt to capture the positive Blue Star reaction. So we went a little bit out of order with that one.
You may not know this, so tell me if this is outside the scope. Did you know that there were 2 warrants and searches at that location on Hyde Avenue?
That part I'm not aware.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. I'm not gonna ask you about stuff
Okay.
you don't know. You were only involved in a single search of that residence?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right, I'm gonna pivot to, am I right that there were only 2 locations, I'm gonna say locations, 2 locations you went to?
Yes, for myself that night, yes.
And only 2 locations on this case, right?
For me, yes.
For you?
Yes,
I'm only talking about.
yes.
So let's talk about the other location. The other location was a dumpster,
Mhm.
and the dumpster was really on it may not be the exact opposite side of town, but it's pretty close.
Pretty close, you're
Pretty
right.
close. It's southwest.
Yes.
When you got to the dumpster, you were not the first people from LMPD on the scene.
That's right.
Do you remember how many people were already there?
If memory serves correctly, there were 3 detectives there. Yes,
And do you know how long they've been there?
I do not.
That's not your job, right? You're not-
No.
Once you arrived, does that make you in charge of the scene, or are other people still in charge of the
They're
scene?
still in charge of the scene.
Okay.
We're an assist unit, so we work at their direction.
Okay. I was trying to give you promotion, I guess.
Thank you.
And how many people from your unit arrived? I know you were there. Were you the only person there?
No, myself and technician Stevenson. She has since retired, but she was my assist that evening.
Is that a normal 2 people kind of?
Typically, if we work a big case, we typically work together so that we can assist one another.
If that's the case, and tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm not sure. does that mean one person is doing more of the physical handling, the other person's maybe memorializing with the camera or video?
Sometimes, but typically we pretty much help each other out. It's an equal job. So
While you're there doing that, do you have the detectives pitch in? Are they doing that too? Or are you the only one who's touching?
we are just us. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Typically, we try to keep the fewer hands involved. Typically.
When you arrived at the scene, I shouldn't say scene, that location. There was no fire going then.
No.
There was no any fire that was there. It was out.
Yes.
It's a dumpster, so one of the issues for you is you're not sure what items could have been in there before that have nothing to do with you.
Mhm.
I couldn't tell, but it looks sort of like normal size dumpsters.
It was
It
standard.
wasn't some huge industrial size.
No.
Okay. So you were using your best judgment to determine which items were had evidentiary value and which did not.
That's right.
And you were also getting some input from the detectives there. as
Majority
well.
of the input.
Majority,
yes.
okay. So when you say majority, you mean that they're telling you that item matters. I don't think that item does. I'm not trying, you tell me, is that right or is that wrong?
We were kind of bouncing ideas off of one another. Again, we were going by what we could see visibly with the naked eye. If something appeared to be blood, we really honed in on that. And then burnt items that appeared to be heavily damaged or that were close in proximity to one another that looked like they had all been dumped together. That's kind of what we were looking at, if that helps.
Okay. But an item that had previously been in that dumpster, if there was a fire, would still be burned.
True. Yes, that's true.
Okay.
Some of the things like the latex glove and the pillow, they had kind of meshed together. Some of the things you could tell that were inside that tote, they may have had a little bit of blue plastic still on them. Again, we were working at their direction. So kind of going by what they instructed.
Okay. And as you were taking items out, you're also photographing them, and we saw a whole bunch of photos.
Yes.
All right. For the most part, unless something, I think that one was like stuck. Just for the most part, everything that is evidence worthy gets its own photo, right?
Yes. Yes.
Unless they're stuck together or
Yes.
something like that.
Yes.
So we saw a whole bunch. I don't know. I think it was, my math is right, 34 photos from the
I
dumpster.
believe so.
Does that sound right? Okay. And there wasn't anything that didn't get photoed, right? That's a terrible sentence. Everything got photoed,
Yes.
photographed.
Yes.
There is no photo of a car seat, back seat.
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Well, I mean, you just saw the
Yeah,
photos,
no.
right?
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
And also, you have some, I mean, we all don't have perfect recall from 7 years ago, but you remember the event, right? And the reason there's no photo of a big old car seat is because when you got there, as far as what you saw, you didn't see a car seat.
That's right.
If you had seen a car seat, you certainly would have taken a picture of
Yes.
it.
That's right.
If you had taken a car seat into evidence, you would have
Packaged it.
packaged it.
Yes.
Right. In fact, something as big as that requires a whole lot of extra packaging and making sure, and because you have procedures for big items, right?
Yes. Yes.
So anything like that, you certainly would have taken a photo of, and you would remember probably.
Yes.
And you're sitting here under oath today, and you're saying no car seat.
No car seat.
So any car seat that was there would have been gone before you arrived.
Yes. I
Okay.
did not document or collect a car seat.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Right, Jack?
Yes, just circle back to the video.
Okay.
On that, back in 2016, you took the video, correct?
Yes,
And you're saying it was on a cassette?
yes.
Was that, like, did you have a video camera?
So we had handheld camcorders that actually still used the small cassette tapes at that time. They
So
were
did-
very tiny.
When you got, and were you able to review it on scene?
No, no. I mean, we could see
So
the
you could
screen itself that it was coming up black, so, but we didn't actually go back and replay anything at that time.
But you could see as it was filming?
Yes.
But it wasn't
Yes.
And then you took the cassette back with you, and what did you do with it?
Again, once we get it back to the office, it becomes an exhibit. So we then would label the exterior of the tape with the case number, the date, our initials, and the exhibit number that we've assigned, and the description, which was scene video, which then became exhibit 62.
And is exhibit 62 listed on the CSU?
Yes,
Is that the CSU report that we've all been working on?
yes,
So everybody's known that it was listed in the report, even though we didn't have it.
yes, it's in my report.
So, hold on, let me let the light come on. Maybe that's it. All right.
That's probably it.
Okay, so I'm gonna just hit play.
Again, in order to capture the results from the Blue Star reaction, it needs to be total blackness. That's why you see this dark video here.
Yeah, they're right over there. You can go move them.
And so is this just gonna be another 8 minutes of this?
Yes,
Okay.
of us just trying to capture the results.
Fine. Okay, just for the record, can we see the numbers moving 44, 45?
Yes. No,
Is there ever audio with
No.
with CSU, see
No.
videos? All right, thank you. I'm gonna stop this so we can turn the lights back on. Has CSU made any changes to improve video
yes,
of Blue Star?
yes. Typically, we do not capture positive reactions of Blue Star on video. We just attempted that evening to see if we could finagle it in a way that it might work, and it did not work. It was not successful, obviously. That was just an attempt that we made to try to capture those positive results.
So if you went out now to a scene, and
We would not video it.
You wouldn't video it
No.
at all.
We have new
Is-
cameras. We would photograph
Is there a better way to photograph now?
with our new cameras. Yes, seems to work better.
What's different about those?
They're just
cameras?
updated. It's just an updated camera, basically.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Judge, I don't have any further questions, but due to the new video, could this be subject to
Yeah, that was my plan, actually. Ms. Kimmer, you are free to go, but you're what's called subject to recall, which means that if something arises and we need to call you back to ask questions about the video, that might occur. So you cannot be in the courtroom. You might not have been anyway, but for the
Wasn't.
remainder of the trial.
Okay. Um, this is hard to keep up with because I just feel like everybody is unorganized. I feel like it's sloppy. I feel like everyone is ill prepared. And so I'm having a hard time listening to this. I believe that the defense was trying to say that the video was either altered or that since they did not do a walkthrough video of the home, that it's a possibility that that wasn't the home. That's what I got from that. I also kind of heard, or what I believe to have heard, was that the defense believed that they planted evidence. Um, and also the big question is, where is the car seat? So y'all let me know what y'all think about that. It was hard to keep up. I'm not gonna lie. I started zoning out because I just don't think this was a good job as it relates to presenting evidence in a trial such as this one. Again, I didn't hear anything about the unaliving weapon, no knives, no GUNs, no anything like that. I think I remember when Corey testified that he said that neither one of the brothers bled out, so I guess there wasn't any blood spatter. Um, so I'm not sure. They had 7 years to prepare. I guess it just wasn't enough evidence, but the evidence that they have, to me, like I said, if I was a juror and Ann Juan and Corey had not testified, I would not be swayed either way. It wasn't enough to say that Brice Rhodes committed this crime, especially since I didn't hear of any DNA collected off of anything in the house. There were no pictures taken in the house aside from when they pulled up the carpet. Nothing to that effect. You did see pictures of the car once it was stripped, and I do remember reading that they collected DNA evidence that pointed to Brice Rhodes from the gear shift as well as the steering wheel, but that just means that he drove the car. I mean, he could have drove it, anytime. So that just wasn't enough for me. But y'all let me know what y'all think about that. Let's see what Sherry had to say. I am from Kentucky and I'm ashamed of these state attorneys. They're pathetic. They definitely needed Opera and her team. Okay. They seem very sloppy and unprofessional. I agree. If I hadn't watched the two young men's testimonies, I don't believe he would have been convicted. It was powerful and heartbreaking. I am and I agree with you, Sherry. I do. And I know a lot of people will be upset about that, but it is what it is. When we are watching trials and trials are taking place, we have to rely on the evidence, right? And of course, we don't agree with his behavior or whatnot, but that evidence was piss poor, in my opinion. John. Hey, boo thing. How are you? Thanks for coming. What you been up to? All right. So the next video that I have will be the opening statement for the defense. And I want everybody to understand that they mention a name of a beautiful young lady who dedicated her life to saving lives. She was brought up in this opening statement, and it was very distasteful. Um, so I just want to make everybody aware of that. So when you hear it, of course, be upset, but I don't want you to be taken aback by it because I did try to forewarn everyone. But we're going to hear to see what the defense believes their defense is, and we will chat about it in a minute. So let me see. I thought I had it next in the queue. Yes, I do. Okay, here it is.
I stabbed him. I stabbed Maurice in his side. I drove on him. I ran him over. Ladies and gentlemen, these are quotes from someone involved in this case, but these are not quotes from Brice Rhodes. These statements were made by Ann Juan Carter. Ann Juan Carter talking about killing his best friend, Maurice Gordon, and running over a helpless Christopher Jones. Ann Juan Carter is the prosecution's main witness in this trial. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm so glad that you're here. I'm thankful that you're here. I know Brice is also grateful that you are here because he has waited a long time for you all to hear the evidence. The evidence, or the lack thereof, will show you that Brice Rhodes is not guilty of these accusations. The burden of proof being beyond a reasonable doubt. Why do we keep talking about that? I know you've heard that many times already. Our system, our government makes it so difficult to take someone's freedom that we can't let the government make any mistakes. And we want to be sure that no one is ever wrongfully convicted, especially in a situation where the stakes are this high. The government has made some very serious accusations against Brice. And I'm not here to undermine the loss that the families and the community have suffered as a result of these senseless deaths. But I'm here to make sure that nobody is wrongfully convicted, and that's why you are here. As jurors in this case, you guys have a great responsibility. But with that responsibility also comes a great power. You all have the power to hold the government to their burden of proving Brice Rhodes guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. You have the power to say no. You have the power to say we are not convinced. And the power to know that that decision is okay. So how do you make that decision? As Ms. Jones-Brown told you earlier, none of us can define reasonable doubt for you. That's up to you as a juror. That's up to you as an individual. So what are you going to use to make this determination? You will hear evidence over the next several days. You will decide what evidence you find credible, what witnesses you find believable. So what evidence do you all expect to see to help you make this decision? It's a very important decision. Eyewitnesses? That might be good. I think you'll find that there aren't any eyewitnesses who were not themselves involved in these crimes. There are no neutral witnesses. Do these witnesses have a motive to lie? Can we trust them? You might expect to see a murder weapon. There's not one. Is there physical evidence? Yes. Can it be trusted? That's up to you all to decide. Let's talk about the physical evidence. The Louisville Metro Police Department found tire tracks and footprints at the scene where Larry and Maurice's bodies were found. The tire tracks could not be linked to Brice's vehicle. The footprints did not match Brice's shoes. Brice's fingerprints were not on any evidence. Brice Rhodes' DNA was not found on any evidence except for on the steering wheel and the gear shift of his own vehicle. Let's talk about Brice's car. The Commonwealth showed you a picture of the Mazda. Louisville Metro Police Department searches Brice's car and claims that the entire back seat of Brice's light blue Mazda had been removed in an effort to conceal evidence of these crimes. No DNA linking Brice to those crimes was recovered in that car. You'll hear that Brice borrowed Chris Jensen's black Charger to drive these boys around. And when you hear from Mr. Jensen, note that he is not going to be able to say that anyone was with Brice when he picked up that black Charger, nor was anyone with Brice when he dropped off that black Charger to Mr. Jensen. These are things to consider. I want to give you an alternate perspective, if you will, than what the government has. Have they accused the right person, or was Brice an easy target to blame? Has the one who already committed these crimes pled guilty? I ask you all to listen to the evidence, observe the witnesses, and ask yourselves if something isn't quite right here. The evidence will show that there is a reasonable doubt that Brice Rhodes is guilty. Let's talk about the detectives in this case. as you all know, the Louisville Metro Police Department was the agency responsible for investigating both of these murders, both scenes, or excuse me, both incidents on May 4th and then again on May 22nd. And there were two lead detectives, as the Commonwealth told you, Detective Griffin and Detective Tonelli, and you'll hear from both of them. But I want you to think about how many hands were involved in this case. When it comes to handling evidence, interviewing witnesses, executing search warrants, mistakes were made. And I want you to think, can we rely on every person that works for the Louisville Metro Police Department? You will learn that the Louisville Metro Police Department investigated these homicides. And once again, this is the same force that murdered Breonna Taylor.
Yes. Taylor, I'm going to admonish you to disregard counsel's last statement at this point.
Ladies and gentlemen, even if you find Detective Tonelli and Detective Griffin, the two lead detectives in this case, as I mentioned, there were so many hands in this case. Can you rely on everyone else that works for Louisville Metro Police Department? Detective Tonelli lied under oath about one of the biggest pieces of physical evidence that the police possessed. He told the court under oath not once, but twice, that law enforcement had a piece of evidence that they did not have and do not have. So you might be asking yourself, I can see how some evidence could be lost. Maybe it was a tiny piece of hair. Maybe it was a speck of DNA. That seems reasonable. Ladies and gentlemen, no, it was an entire back seat of a car. It's gone. You know how I told you earlier that the police stated that Brice's back seat had been removed. Detective Tonelli told a judge and then a grand jury that the Louisville Metro Police Department had found and collected a burnt back seat from a dumpster that matched Brice Rhodes' back seat. And now it's gone. I am mystified as to how you lose a piece of evidence that big. It's huge. It's a huge piece of evidence, not only physically, but to the case as well. So in an effort to get Brice charged, the court was misled, the grand jury was misled about a piece of evidence in the LMPD's possession. Did they lie under oath about having it? Or did they dispose of it because it didn't help their case? You all decide that. The Louisville Metro Police Department searched the home of Brice's mother, where he was residing on Hyde Avenue in Louisville, 2 times. The first search, officers found nothing incriminating. They even commented on how clean the apartment was. The crime scene unit was there, detectives were there, officers were there. It was a big search. Nothing was found. And then they decide to just go back. The officers go back, decide to search the home again, and now claim that they have found evidence that Larry and Maurice were killed there. Now there's suddenly blood there. First of all, is that how search warrants work? You keep going back until you find something, and if you don't find anything, you find a way to come back and find something. If at first you don't succeed, try again, huh? But that's not how search warrants work, ladies and gentlemen. Despite all of those officers being there, I've never seen a video recording of the search at Hyde Avenue. There's nothing for you all to watch to see what actually happened. I want you to consider that when you hear about how the evidence was collected. Consider that reasonable doubt as to the guilt of Mr. Rhodes. I want to talk to you all about the investigation in this case, or the lack thereof. I think it's fair to say that you all could conclude that the police had tunnel vision in this case. And when I say tunnel vision, I mean that they focused in on Brice Rhodes, excluding all other possible suspects. Elizabeth Wren, the mother of Larry and Maurice, was the first to point the finger at Brice Rhodes. But why? She didn't see anything. So what was her problem with Brice? Was it their romantic relationship had gone bad? I feel for her. She lost both of her sons. She's a grieving mother, and you will see that when she testifies. But I'm going to ask you to look past that and think about the part that she played in this. Consider the reliability of her statement. Evidence will show that she is a known drug user who was aware that her juvenile sons were hanging with Ja'Cory Taylor and Anwan Carter, were involved with guns, and even knew her son's friends bought a gun out of her own home. She was naturally distraught when she spoke to the police, but also very likely under the influence. And I'm not saying that to speak ill of her, but as a jury, you have to know that the police took her statement and did not investigate anyone else. The police didn't care that she hated Brice. The police didn't care that they had a relationship that went sour. The police didn't care that she hadn't actually seen anything. They already had a name, and she was happy to trash her ex-boyfriend. Ladies and gentlemen, no other suspects were investigated. Not a full investigation was done, as you might expect to see in a case of this magnitude. There were, however, other suspects to investigate. Just prior to the shooting of Christopher Jones, a Louisville Metro police officer reported a suspect in a white shirt, reported receiving a report of a suspect in a white shirt riding a bicycle and waving a gun around in the area. It's not a coincidence. It's a high crime area. It wasn't investigated. Another witness reported seeing a black Chrysler 300M near the scene of Christopher Jones's death, and even stated a person got out and messed with the body, but then fled before the police arrived. This was not investigated. Another possible suspect comes to light in the statements of Anwan Carter and Ja'Cory Taylor. They both described two other men being present at and participating in the murder of brothers Larry and Maurice. Tieran Coleman was eventually charged and convicted. However, the other individual was not charged or even questioned. There is a reasonable doubt that Brice Rhodes is guilty. There's no clear motive for Brice to have committed these crimes. The police allege that Brice Rhodes shot and killed Christopher Jones in the presence of Ja'Cory Taylor, Anwan Carter, Larry Ordway, and Maurice Gordon. And then about 3 weeks later, the police think that Brice stabbed Larry and Maurice because Brice was afraid they would go to the police and rat. But the other two who were present are still alive. Anwan Carter and Ja'Cory Taylor were there, and they are still alive. Does this make sense to you? And I would like to talk about those co-defendants. I stabbed him. I stabbed Maurice in his side. I drove on him. I ran him over. Anwan Carter was facing life in prison for his actions against 3 innocent people. He was facing life in prison. And the prosecution said, that's okay. We'll give you probation. But to get the sweetheart offer, you got to give us someone else. Anwan Carter pled guilty to the murders of Christopher Jones, Maurice Gordon, Larry Ordway. And in exchange for that, the prosecution was okay with probation, or maybe a little prison, left it up to the judge, if you testify against Brice Rhodes. Anwan Carter gave a name, the police took it and ran with it. Up to that point, all they had was kids killing other kids. They wanted an adult to stick it to. And here we are. 2 people have already admitted to killing Christopher Jones. Anwan Carter and Ja'Cory Taylor. 3 people have already admitted to killing Larry Ordway and Maurice Gordon. Again, Anwan Carter and Ja'Cory Taylor, plus Tyrone Coleman. They have all pled guilty to their murders. So why are we here then? Because in order for those men to get very lenient deals from the government, they agreed to testify against Brice. The evidence will show you all that those responsible for the murders have already been convicted and are now trying to put the blame on Brice Rhodes. There is reasonable doubt that Brice Rhodes is guilty. The evidence will show that the testimony of Anwan Carter and Ja'Cory Taylor, who you will hear from, is not believable. Both of these men are known criminals. In fact, Anwan Carter is currently in prison right now in the state of Florida. Guess what for? Gun charges. He had a loaded weapon on him. So after he got his sweetheart deal here in Kentucky for killing 3 people, he went to the state of Florida, joined a gang, and again got arrested. He changed his statement at least 3 times to the police that I can think of. At first, Mr. Carter even told police, I do not know Brice Rhodes. I've never been in a car with him. However, after having time to consult with Ja'Cory Taylor, a plan was concocted to point the finger at Brice Rhodes. These 2, Taylor and Carter, had a chance to get their stories together. There weren't any suspects initially after the Christopher Jones murder, but about 3 weeks later, Larry and Maurice are killed. Anwan Carter wasn't questioned until about 2 days after that incident. So all of this time, Carter and Taylor had time to get their stories straight, to come up with a plan of how to get themselves out of this. A plan to make themselves look less guilty for murdering their best friends, Larry and Maurice. A plan to blame Brice. Anwan Carter admitted to running over Christopher Jones's body in a pickup truck that he had stolen, that Mr. Carter had stolen. Do you know what kind of vehicle witnesses reported seeing at the scene where Larry and Maurice's bodies were recovered? A pickup truck, not Brice's blue Mazda. Anwan Carter admitted to stabbing his best friend Maurice Gordon. Carter claims to have seen Brice Rhodes shoot Christopher Jones, but the evidence will show that what Anwan Carter in fact saw was a hand out the window shooting a gun. If you recall, Mr. Carter was in the vehicle behind where the shots were fired, the vehicle that the shots were fired from. It was dark outside, and Carter could not see the face of the shooter. Ja'Cory Taylor was in the back seat where the shots were fired and had just bought a gun from the boyfriend of Larry and Maurice's mother. And Anwan Carter saw Ja'Cory Taylor buy the gun. There's reasonable doubt that Brice Rhodes is guilty. Ja'Cory Taylor admitted to buying that gun right before the shooting of Christopher Jones. He admitted to getting into an altercation with Maurice Gordon right before Maurice died. He admitted that Maurice Gordon pulled a knife on him. And then he admitted to stabbing Larry. Again, reasonable doubt. At the conclusion of the evidence, you will be asked to make a decision about Brice's fate. You have promised that in order to find anyone guilty, the government has first proven to you that that person is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. If the government has not done that, you all must find him not guilty. I stabbed him. I stabbed Maurice in his side. I drove on him. I ran him over. You all get to decide what is true, who you believe, and what is reliable. I ask you to use your power as jurors to tell the government you are not convinced. Tell them that the evidence is not sufficient, and tell them that we will not wrongfully convict Brice. Thank you.
Well, did Brice testify? No, he didn't testify. The judge will give him an opportunity at the end of the penalty phase right before sentencing to testify. I'm sorry, y'all. My allergies are going. So you're right, John, and I think they just want the jury to make an inference based off of them just being there because there's no evidence pointed toward Brice at all. Maya, I agree. Aside for her mentioning Breonna Taylor and talking poorly about the mom, man, yeah, I don't, yeah. Yeah. Mhm. 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 Right. Right. And it's probably something Brice told them. We're not questioning her character. The only thing I think what did I mention earlier? I didn't understand why when they told their mom that what they witnessed as in regards to Mr. Jones, why she did not call the police. But her character is not in question. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. She is. She didn't give a damn. Her job is to defend, and she had to figure out what do I need to say. I want to know, does anyone know what the jury makeup is? Was it predominantly black or white? And that is probably why she threw Breonna Taylor in there and trying to make it seem as if the police is corrupt, which I believe they are. However, you can't compare the two. You can't. Excuse me. Mhm. 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 She said, Y'all gonna be convinced, okay? Period, point blank. All right, if y'all got a little more time, just a little more time, I did find a video from Mr. Brice Rhodes' YouTube channel, which he wants us to listen to, and he is basically blaming everyone under the sun. And you may be surprised by a name that you'll hear within the first couple of minutes, but he is basically saying that there was police and prosecutorial misconduct. So it is about 23 minutes, and I can't remember if the audio is the best. However, I am steadily taking notes. And just remember, guys, that the video, this live will be condensed. Um, so if you want to go back to a certain part, the videos will be available. I will be working on them tonight as well as tomorrow. So, certain areas that you found more interesting, or if you want to go back and listen to, you can without having to replay the entire live. The purpose of the live is for me to engage with y'all, okay? Because my lives make my channel. So just keep that in mind. But this is a video I found on his actual YouTube page. Let me go back a little bit. Uh, and again, if you can't hear it, just wait for me to post
My name is Brice Rhodes.
the video tomorrow. But I am taking notes, and the closed caption is on.
I'm currently incarcerated in Louisville, Kentucky, in Metro Corrections. I've been awaiting trial for 4 years, and I still have no set trial date due to the prosecution's delays and excuses. Before I begin, I would like to say for the record, I am innocent of all charges. So I'm here today to expose and point out corruption and fabrications concerning my case. I believe it's important for the public and the courts to see this raw footage of corruption by detectives and the prosecution. What motivated me to promote this video is I seen how detectives in the Breonna Taylor case altered evidence and fabricated time frames, which is illegal. Her lawyers exposed this, so I shall do the same in my situation. So now, if you would, I would like you to watch and pay close attention. First, you will see at my preliminary hearing on June 3rd, 2016, a detective named Ryan Griffin, Ryan with an R, Ryan Griffin, state his name under oath and his testimony under oath. This shows how he committed perjury, first degree, which is a Class D felony in the state of Kentucky. Okay, watch.
You can't hear anything on this video, so just don't worry about it.
On behalf of Commonwealth, Mr. Rhodes also, just under 31 and 32, their motions to revoke, he will also get some support to revoke these cases as well.
Before we get started with all of this, would you please identify yourself?
Signing Taylor, English Rising on behalf of
The defendant.
Aaron Dyke with GOC goes with Mr. Rhodes.
If there are no other preliminary matters, then I would ask the county to call their first witness.
I would like to call Detective Griffin.
If you could please approach the witness stand here.
Rhodes got out, fired a shot, striking the victim.
Matter of fact, you know what? I'm not gonna play this because the audio is piss poor. It's piss poor. So basically, he's saying that there is an attorney who perjured himself, and I guess he's trying to use that as a defense. I will watch this on my own and then just provide commentary later, because this video, the audio is just horrible. So I'm not even gonna play with that. Um, but all in all, what do y'all think? So I mentioned earlier that I felt like had the boys not testified, um, personally, I felt like it probably would have been a little bit challenging because the evidence that was collected, they didn't find any DNA whatsoever aside from the car, from the steering wheel and the gear shift. I hope I'm saying that right. And they did not look for any other evidence inside of the house except for under the carpet. They did not like collect anything else. They never found a murder weapon or the unaliving weapon. They didn't take anything from Bryce's room. They didn't take anything from the other boy's room. It just went off of their testimony, which I do believe, and I do believe that Brice was the um, mastermind behind all of it. I think what the jury went more specifically is the fact that had the boys not met Brice, they would not have committed this type of crime. Maurice and Larry were both honor roll students, and it is just unfortunate that they were allowed to hang out with someone like Brice. They were easily influenced by Brice, and just the things that I guess the persona that he showed them, fast money, cars, he gave them food, clothing, took them on rides, gave them alcohol and Mary Jane, and it was a hangout spot for them. And so I think that with that and just influencing them the way that he did, they became scared and just did what he wanted them to do. But again, had they not even met up with him, I don't believe that they would have even thought about a crime of this magnitude. And so I think with that, that kind of swayed the jury to make the right choice. Um, I think it was DNA in the house fee. I just think that they just did not take the time to collect it. It just seems to me that it was rushed, um, because there was a call that the boy's body were found behind the abandoned building and they were charred, and so they weren't able to get any DNA evidence. They weren't even able to get fingerprints. And remember, the mom called the phone because the boys they hadn't been home all night, which to me is a red flag. You know, they're only 14 and 16. They shouldn't be gone all night. And the mom knew that they had dealings with Brice. So that is my only questioning as it relates to her. And that's where I'll leave that. But once they learned that um, the unaliving took place in the apartment, all they did was use the blue star and the room didn't light up, and so they pulled up the carpet, but they did not check anything. They didn't check for, like I said, missing knives or if there was a GUN in the house. They didn't swab anything. Like I said, they didn't check Bryce's room or anything like that. And so I'm just concerned about that part of it. Oh, who is this? RJ Supreme. Hi, welcome. He sure does. He sure does. Let's see what my girl Sherry's saying. I do think Brice did it and convinced the young boys to go along with all of this. The LMP was very sloppy in in their investigation. I believe that, Sherry. I do. It was very sloppy and very rushed. And I think all of us, we've all watched enough trials to where we can all agree with that. Um, yeah, so thankfully the boys did testify, and I just hate that they were involved with this. Now, I did do some research on Anwan. I think some of us had questions about him in the last live. And so he served his time, and I think he was released early, if I remember correctly. However, he did violate his probation. He was caught up in a burglary. And so they issued a bench warrant. He was arrested in Florida and he is finishing out his sentence there. And then they will deal with his violation of probation in Kentucky when he's done with that. So unfortunately, it looks like Anwan has gotten into trouble again. As far as Corey, he did receive 10 years as a part of his plea deal. However, I could not find any information if he was released on probation or not. I know he did appear in court in street clothing, so it could have just been something that the judge allowed. I'm not sure. Now, keep in mind their records are sealed because they were juveniles at the time of the crime. So whatever information that is available was just, via their testimony in court. I cannot get any of their records yet. I did try to find the transcript from the interrogation of Corey, which is sealed. So I don't have that yet either. Um, They did release the brief interrogation of Brice, and the audio was horrible. But just to summarize that, he was basically saying that he did know of Maurice and Larry. However, he did not know where they were, and that he was worried about them as well. Um, he said that he knew the boys to have gotten in trouble in the past, and so they could be out just, running amok. Um, he said that he did want to find them or want to help find them. He did mention that he dated their mom in the past. Um, what else did he say? I have to go back and watch, but the audio was poor, so I'm not playing that. I'll just probably do a video once I'm able to transcribe it, and then I can just read it. But it was only 12 minutes, and the detective said when they left the room and came back, Brice asked for an attorney. So we're just left to wonder as far as that's concerned. I am wondering if Brice will speak at his sentencing hearing after this penalty phase. I do know the grandmother did testify today. I did see that Bryce's stepmother um, testified on his behalf today as well. I didn't watch it, but I just saw the video. I didn't watch the video. I just, had browsed through it. Um, what else did I want to mention? I think that's it because, like I said, I'm doing little short videos on it. I know Sherry was very sad. Oh, I did find out that the reason, so what happened when he didn't want to testify the other day, the judge had to just basically threaten him with jail if he did not cooperate. And so he did speak with the defense attorney to understand the conditions of his plea deal. And so that's why, he eventually testified. But I can understand, they offered him that plea deal when he was 15 years old. And again, if I was 15, I probably would just take whatever the state would offer me. um, that's a young age and you're afraid. And so probably by now, 7 years later, you have a completely different mindset and you're still afraid. He's living with this every day. Bryce is sitting right there, probably staring him down. He already threatened him in in jail, which I'm wondering how did he even get those transcripts? Um, because he took the transcripts from Corey's interrogation and he wrote on them and then somehow was able to get that delivered to Corey and told Corey after he got done reading it to flush it. So all of that is a mystery and maybe it will be a part of the discovery if and when it's made available to the public. I will try my best to get it once it is, if it ever is. I'm not sure. Um, but yes, it was really sad. um, and so that's that. I mean, we're all just sitting here waiting now. The trial is over, the guilt portion of it, and so we just have to wait. I really believe that it's going to be a LWOP, meaning life without the possibility of parole for Mr. Bryce. I guess they're going to have another trial for the other crimes that he committed within the 7 years that he was waiting for this trial to take place. Um, so we'll just have to wait on that if anybody's even interested at this point. I think we just wanted to see justice for everyone else. So that's all I have for this live, guys. I am very tired. I am very, very tired. Um, so I'm gonna get something to eat to get a little strength to get these other videos out just on based off some other research that I conducted. And tomorrow we are meeting up. Let me just check real quick because somebody asked me about Hannah, and I think I'm doing a Hannah video tomorrow. Let me look and see what I have lined up. So I'm doing two lives tomorrow. Tomorrow's the 20th. So we're gonna start with maybe I can switch this. I really don't have anything else to say about Bryce. I mean, we've covered everything. It's nothing else to talk about Bryce. So I think I'm gonna cancel that one. And we're going to do I'm gonna do a Hannah video tomorrow. Let me cross this off. We're gonna do a Hannah video tomorrow, and then it's gonna roll over into a Darrell video. Because we all need our weekly fix. So we have Darrell starting at 9:30, and then I'll do the Hannah video. I think I'll start that one at 6. So whoever asked me about Hannah, it will be tomorrow at 6 and then Terrell Brooks at 9:30. And that's it. I appreciate everybody that tunes in. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. We are at a 770 subscribers. Thank you all so much for your time and your engagement. I really do appreciate everybody. I just don't have the energy that I need to keep going with this. And I'm done talking about it. They found Bryce guilty, so that's it. We're going to wait to see what the rest of this penalty phase is talking about. And those will just do video. Those will just be videos. I'm not doing any more lives about Bryce. I'm sick of him. So, y'all be easy, okay? And I will talk to y'all later. Peace.